started with my most absolute favorite superhero film of all time, and one of his many favorable films, Iron Man. The one that started it all, the one that blew me away. I got to say it right now, I've watched this movie so many fucking times, like, I'm kind of sick of it. Because when I was rewatching it to get prepared for the vlog series, I was like, wow, I know this film too fucking well. If I thought about it hard enough, I'd probably reenact every freaking line, every scene, every moment in my head, if I put my heart and mind to it. And I guess that's one of the many reasons why it shouldn't necessarily be my most favorite superhero film. Unlike this guy, whose most favorite superhero film is, take a wild guess, The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight of all films. I mean,
the film that actually beat Iron Man at the box office.
How about that? I haven't checked all these statistics and other facts up, but yeah. While we're on that subject, give a brief synopsis, a brief take as to why The Dark Knight is your most favorite superhero film over this one, which came out the same month, didn't it? Came out the same month, May of 2008.
No, Dark Knight came out in July.
It did?
I think it came out in July. But
so why do you love Dark Knight so much?
Besides the fact that I grew up with Batman, that was that was the first superhero I was introduced to.
You Iron Man hater.
Screw you. But yeah, the reason why is because besides the fact that I grew up with Batman, and the more I started learning from Batman, it was kind of a personal connection I have with it. I'll get more into that in another freaking video someday. Maybe we'll do a DC related video on this after we're done with Marvel in who knows how long. But the reason why is because I like how much like Logan, it combines elements of the superhero genre while also being kind of a crime noir thriller. The action, the acting is beautiful. The story is very complex. The ending is just it's just perfect. It's a great way to end it. There's more. I want to go deeper detail, but I don't want to end up stealing Iron Man's thunder. So I'll just say that yeah.
You said it ended it. Are you talking
the ending? The ending to Dark Knight. I really love the ending.
Great ending.
I'm not gonna say it's a perfect film. Not everyone's favorite movie has to be not everyone has to see their favorite film with perfection. It's more of how you felt when you watched the movie, and if you still for me, I still feel like it is the perfect Batman film. It is the perfect Batman film, live action. But whatever, this is supposed to be fucking Iron Man. Why the hell I'm starting to go off tangent. Get to Iron Man, damn it!
Whatever. And on that note, yeah, I think this is an absolutely fantastic film. I still do after all these years, even though I'm sick to death of it. And I take longer and longer breaks from watching it. That's how sick and tired I am of it. Ugh, I accidentally spit. But, excuse me. Like some or a lot of people, this is how I was introduced to Iron Man full time. I mean, I remember seeing the commercials as a kid and thinking, yeah, this looks really good. It's no Spider-Man, but it's going to be really good. And this was just after Spider-Man 3 was released. Fantastic film, by the way. I don't give a fuck what anyone says. And I had seen bits of the animated series from the 90s, which very much like the Hulk animated series, which I love and have loved since I was a kid, didn't have a lot of episodes. I think it only had 24 maybe, or 25 at most.
I think it had more than that, but the show did go through a weird tonal shift where it started off very bright, very colorful, and then we got to this...
Especially with that fucking intro for the first season, that was so silly. Silly.
It was very cheesy, and it actually kind of reminded me more of it looked like a discount version of Transformers in some regards.
The first thing I always remember in regards to the intro is where Iron Man walks out and the music goes dun 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 dun.
Yeah.
And the Mandarin fires at him.
Yeah, and he's green and shit because for reasons because I guess they didn't want to do stereotypes.
So anyway, and I remember when I was a big fan of the Hulk animated series, I think that was the first time I ever saw a full-on story of Iron Man, and was loosely familiar, almost acquainted with Tony Stark and Iron Man and War Machine and Rhodey and and Homer, though I completely forgot it was called Homer at the time, and the AI, which would eventually become the Jarvis character in the MCU, which is
or at least inspired this version of Jarvis,
which was based on an actual Butler character called Jarvis that a lot of people don't know about unless you look into the comics like we do.
Or you see the Ultimate Avengers film, which did have Jarvis in there,
and the cartoon film, and then I saw this, and I really liked it at the time. I loved it, and then over the months that followed, I fell in love with it more and more and more. It was like the first movie I ever had on my iPad, and I watched it on my iPad, and my eyes were glued to the screen as I watched the same scenes over and over again, and I guess you pretty much know the rest. So it's high time we got into the plot of the story, which I'll explain and he'll elaborate on with me. The very beginning of the film, the very beginning of the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe is, it's not, for watching it again I realize it's not necessarily 5-star material, and let's face it, in movies in general, you shouldn't really expect 5-star material with any particular scene in any form or fashion, no matter how much effort is put into it, but despite, excessive rating and all, it is the perfect way to introduce Tony Stark. Because the very beginning of the film is him in a military convoy going somewhere and having chats with his buddies and with his shy, short-haired white buddy who makes peace signs, and Tony's telling him, don't put this on your MySpace page.
Yeah, this movie really dates itself.
Remember when MySpace was a thing? I never even had a fucking MySpace page.
I had a MySpace page, and I stopped updating it, and I remember exactly when I did. It was right at around... I did a whole Treehouse of Horror themed page related to it. I got, if you don't know what Treehouse of Horror is, well, you guys probably know, but this guy doesn't really watch that many Simpsons. It's a Halloween thing that they do every year for a season. Where they do different...
But then, before MySpace shit gets more epic than it usually does, the convoy gets attacked. And all these side characters that we just got familiar with, they get killed one by one, and it's really tragic, to be honest, because you're in Tony's situation, and instantly Tony is all terrified and stuff, and even the MySpace guy, I forget his name, Forrest is all freaked out and trying to protect Tony, telling him to stay in the truck, but then getting killed right after, and Tony's trying to stay alive, and then just before he gets blasted by a Stark Industries bomb, he sees Stark Industries, and you can imagine the horror that he feels inside. He gets blasted, and I always saw it as that was the blast that made Iron Man, because that's the blast that launches the shrapnel in his chest and so forth. He wakes up being held hostage by terrorists, and you see the title screen. And then the very next scene, which is arguably better than the first, I don't want to nitpick too much at each scene at a time. I'm just trying that right now because I really freaking love this film so much. The very next scene is the perfect way to introduce Tony's character through this public demonstration, real slideshow thing at this special event that basically explains his life with some very subtle establishing shots of Obadiah Stane, who was the best friend of Tony's father, Howard Stark, who started the company, who died in a car accident. This is back when it was a car accident, mind you, those who've seen fucking Civil War and all that.
Just briefly on that one, I just want to add that it was kind of already talked about in Captain America: Winter Soldier that it was a fake.
But even then, it didn't need to be done that way. But that's another story entirely. I'm just saying right now, it was perfect enough that they died in a car accident because it was totally natural, totally relevant, totally relatable. And so, after Tony's best friend James Rhodes goes up there, Tony doesn't show up for his own reward. So Obadiah Stane has to take the reward for him, and then we see he's all fooling around in some casino somewhere, and then...
While his theme song is playing in the background.
Right. Yeah. Which he was telling me just before we started this video, and then I'll edit the part he told me there.
Yeah, well, yeah, the very first scene where you get to see Tony Stark, it is actually the music in the background is actually from the 1960s Iron Man cartoon show.
Tony Stark, he's I've already forgotten it. No more on that, but that's a fun little trivia fact that was much better exploited in what we just edited here. Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, he's fooling around at casinos and with blonde reporters, Christine Everhart, and
also we get hints of Captain America actually in that scene where when he talks to the reporter lady, when he talks to Christine, he pretty much tells her that his father actually served in World War II by making weapons for the military. Kind of briefly, which kind of briefly hints that his father did assist during that time, and kind of alludes to what would happen later in Captain America.
I think it's kind of overstretching it a bit, but that's just me. But what I do love about that moment is that that's like Tony's first sincere moment post convoy scene, because he's being both a jackass, but he's being sincere at the same time, defending his father's honor and his own reputation and so forth before fooling around with Christine. And then when Christine leaves the next morning, we get introduced to Pepper Potts, and that Tony's just messing around, trying to come up with new genius ways of modifying his cars. That's what he does in his spare time.
Yep.
And then he has to go on a trip overseas for a weapons demonstration of the Jericho missile, this new special missile that launches numerous projectile small explosions at once over vast battlefields. Because, as Tony puts it, I prefer the weapon you only have to fire once, and the bad guys won't come out of their caves. And it's also during this time that we see more of the sort of mixed relationship he has with Rhodey, with James Rhodes. At this point, I gotta say, what makes it so appealing, this whole 10 or 12-ish minute introduction to Tony's character after the convoy scene, is that we see everything's practically perfect with this guy. He is and not just because of the wealth, but because of his natural hardworking and genius intellect. If we had that, we'd have nothing to worry about, because we wouldn't need servants all the time. We could help ourselves as well as fool around half the time. And even better, the people he does know, or the people who would work for you or me, disregarding whatever financial status or social class we're in, they're totally okay with it too. Like Happy Hogan and Pepper Potts, they pretty much figure, we're going to be doing this the rest of our lives, but Tony's a cool guy, glad to be working for him. I need to remind him about my birthday, and I need to buy my own birthday gifts with his money. Mm-hmm. Not sure if you caught. I didn't catch that until I read into it more. That's what she was alluding to. But with them aside, disregarding them aside,
it really shows that Tony Stark, even though he can be an asshole, he's all around a nice guy. They show that Tony Stark, he can be a dick, and he can be freaking reckless. But at the same time, they do show. The opening makes it very clear that he does, care about the people around him and stuff. Even Obadiah, Obadiah pretty much, when you first meet Obadiah, he's just, he's literally receiving Tony Stark's award, and he has to make the excuse for him, kind of implying, and it's kind of implied that Obadiah does this a lot for Tony. Which really makes the relationship very interesting, and I do kind of wish that we got to dive more into that.
Just one more?
Yeah, sure, thanks.
I already had his pizza slices before, and he loved them.
Yeah, rub it in, man. Yeah, but yeah, so I did actually kind of like the relationship between Tony and Obadiah, but I do feel like we didn't get to explore it as much. I don't know about you, but that was just me.
I think it was implied enough, it was explored enough, but to finish off with this whole introduction stuff for the movie, Rhodey, I think what I noticed rewatching it for the first time in so long is that Rhodey's pretty much one of the only guys who tries to lay to him straight the problems he does have with his life. Like, look, just because you have these natural amazing skills doesn't mean you're living your life to your fullest.
Yep.
Or to your fullest responsibility.
And that's Rhodey. That is been like that's the thing I like about this movie. Like when I first heard about this film, sorry for but like when I first heard about this film, I was kind of worried. The only other time I've seen Iron Man do a solo movie was in the Lionsgate film. And I won't go too deep into it, but I was kind of worried about it because it really didn't feel like they were taking the film in full advantage, and especially with Tony and Rhodey's thing, with like they didn't really do much with it. It was just kind of like Rhodey is, I'm reluctant to work with you, but I'll work with you. Like I don't know, it just felt really off. But in this one, it really did work because you buy the fact that. These guys have known each other for so long, and that, Rhodey, in much like the comics, Rhodey, as you said, he does not take Tony's crap, and he will call him out on whenever he's doing something really stupid. It's something that, that stays true throughout the entire MCU, though, unfortunately, it's never done with, unfortunately, not done with the same actor. But we'll talk about that with Iron Man 2.
We'll get into that a bit later here as well in this one too, because I think it's important to bring it up in this video. But anyway, if you want your diaper change, tell me. I'll get your milk bottle and whatever. And then of course I love that moment where, what? We're not drinking. We're working right now. No. I'm not drinking. I don't want any. And that's what I'm talking about. When I put on my uniform, I see it in there. No. You don't have to be like me. So anyway, then Tony gives off his demonstration, and he gets a call from Stain. Like, really think about it. He gets a call from Stain right before it happens. And of course, Tony has that funny joke of, "Why aren't you wearing the pajamas I gave you?" Good night, Tony. And I, all these years, ever since the movie first came out, ever since I first fell in love with the movie, I always imagined Stain doing this. Good night, Tony. And good riddance.
To be honest with you, I could actually see that happening, especially with Jeff Bridges' take on the character.
I'm convinced that, I don't know about you guys, but I'm convinced that that's the reason why he called in the first place, to see whether the convoy attack had happened or not. Or whether he just wanted to have the satisfaction of seeing Tony for the last time before he was killed.
Yeah, because that's sorry. I'll talk about it. Actually, this fits more something else.
Let's keep going.
Yeah.
And then, just like that, like right after he says goodbye to Rhodey for what seems to be the last time, we get a brief, how do you put it, like recap, like where you see the convoy going and then it gets attacked and then you immediately jump cut to Tony being having surgery done on him by the Ten Rings terrorists, and Yinsid, who will become his new best friend. He wakes up and, to his horror, sees that almost like his heart, almost like his whole chest has been replaced with this large metal thing. And he quickly bonds with the prisoner Yinsid, who is a local scientist from the nearby village of Golmira, which is in like a fictional village in Afghanistan in this universe, I think. And he also he almost immediately meets his captors. I forget who the lieutenant guy's name was. His name always escapes me. I keep forgetting to check into it. But he tells him, "We want you to make the Jericho missile for us."
Yeah.
He refuses. He gets tortured, and then he gets shown all his weapons. They somehow got his weapons and I think they're beginning a terror campaign. They're not full out unleashed yet, but they're starting to. And Tony's very discouraged that anything good's going to come out of this. Yinsid makes that awesome small speech about what you just saw is your legacy. Are you going to do something about it? And Tony's very doubtful, saying there's no point. I'm going to be dead in days because this isn't going to last long. because Yinsen explains that this thing that Tony has, this metal thing that's blocking shrapnel, that's keeping his chest, his heart alive, that's hooked up to a car battery. It's been done before to other people, but they die merely days later, and they're literally called the Walking Dead by the Gulmarians. We'll just call them Gulmarians, the villagers. But, Yinsen still says it's a very important week for you, isn't it? And Tony gets right to work. He first gets to work on a mini arc reactor, which maybe Lewis can explain.
Like, you want me, like...
maybe, I'll just edit around it. Maybe Bizarro Critic can explain better about how the arc reactor works. It's a miniaturized version of a massive arc reactor that powers the Stark factories back in Malibu, I think, or maybe back in New York.
Yeah.
No, it's back in Malibu, I think. And,
yeah. And granted, the arc reactor was actually something that didn't happen until later in comics. Back during the early days of Iron Man, it really was it wasn't called the arc reactor. It was actually just it was pretty much just a repulsor that was just taped. That was literally just to his chest. It did the same thing as the arc reactor, where it's preventing the shrapnel from reaching his heart. But unlike the movie, it also has it where the arc reactor is generating its own power. It's a clean energy source, and the only thing that kind of bugged me about that in the movies is that they never properly explained why the arc reactor itself never became a full-on thing. Obadiah does briefly mention that it was a publicity stunt, but that's still kind of impressive that it could do. You made clean energy like that, why not pat even further? I guess you could say it's kind of explained in Iron Man 2, but it's mostly towards why you don't want to apply that to your own body or something. Apply it to your own chest. But whatever. The arc reactor itself is not too different from what we have in the comics, but it wasn't the first thing that it's not the first thing that Tony Stark had.
So it's a bit ambiguous either way between us how it all works together.
Yeah.
Moving on, he makes the mini arc reactor, and then in secret, I will admit this is a bit of a problem even from my end. He somehow in secret makes his proto Iron Man armor, even though there are cameras everywhere watching them. And the leader Raza, who we'll explain later, Raza, the leader of the Ten Rings, he clearly sees that they're making a robot leg. So why doesn't he suspect maybe they're not building my Jericho missile?
Yep.
And he's supposedly been there for weeks. Well, they don't make that clear either. I think it's implied that he was unconscious for weeks, and then he was conscious for a little while longer, making the Jericho missile for them, but secretly making the proto Iron Man armor, which he didn't even call Iron Man yet.
Yeah.
He and, like I said before, he and Yinsen really bond, and Yinsen explains that that his family, he will see his family when he escapes, and that he sort of, I wouldn't say mock, but he sort of points out to Stark that he has both everything and nothing at the same time with his lifestyle and all. And eventually the two are confronted by Raza, who is the only other English-speaking person in the entire base for some reason, who basically explains in a really cool speech that he is the one destined to conquer the Middle East, to conquer Asia, whatever, and he threatens to kill them both if they don't finish the missile by tomorrow. So everything has to be accelerated, and I can believe that they can accelerate their whole escape plan within a day or so at most. And then we have the awesome escape sequence where Tony dons the first Iron Man armor while Yinsen tragically provides a distraction. He sees this opportunity when the armor needs to charge up. Yinsen sees this opportunity as, we need more time. Hey, I'll buy you some time. This is his chance to nobly sacrifice himself. Because as we see, barely a couple or so minutes later, when Tony starts escaping and supposedly kills Raza, he goes to a dying Yinsen, telling him come on, you're going to see your family. This is part of the escape plan. And of course, Yinsen gives that really tragic line of, my family is dead. I'm going to see them now, Stark. It's okay. I want this. I want this. And Tony thanks him for saving him, and then just before he dies, Yinsen tells him, don't waste your life. And he dies peacefully, and Tony, in a fiery rage, goes out, says the line, my turn. And he just, burn, motherfucker, burn! He burns as many Ten Rings terrorists as he can. He burns all the Stark weapons he can find right then and there. And he takes his first flight, which, well, it's not really a flight, but, it gets him as far away as possible, like probably at least a mile or so away from the base. He briefly wanders the desert. Looking back on it now, they probably could have extended that sequence where he's wandering in the desert, because it literally only lasts like 30 seconds, maybe not even 20 seconds.
Yep. And then, the ex-Duke Machina planes just show up. Well, not planes, helicopters. Not planes, helicopters. Because they just show up right when he's wandering the desert. Because seriously, how the hell would he know where to go?
And how come they didn't find him before? Yinsen himself said, I'm sure they're looking for you, but they'll never find you in these mountains. But anyway, and I shouldn't be, I'm not really angry about this or anything. I don't know if other people are angry about this, but Rhodey, of all people, is one of the people on the helicopter who rescues him.
It's just kind of convenient that it just so happens that his best friend there.
But hey, he has that cool broship moment of, next time you ride with me, okay?
Yeah,
good to have you back.
Yeah, and then we have the.
You explain the next part of the story, because I'm getting a little.
Okay.
Well,
after the hell that Tony went through, he goes back to the States. Pepper is obviously very happy to see him. Like, we have this really nice moment where Tony, reunites with them, and we have this whole thing of Tony, after being their captive for so long, asked for two things: a press conference and a cheeseburger.
An American cheeseburger.
Well,
America.
Yeah,
an American cheeseburger.
Yeah, you see, it's the added dairy that makes it truly American. But yeah, and it's actually personally for me my favorite scene of the movie. It does a good job of combining the adding humor to this moment, which is a very very serious and kind of dramatic moment for Tony, because it's the moment where he makes his claim, he makes his stand about how things are going to change after seeing what his weapons caused and the deaths that it caused. Fucking sounds so weird. Hopefully we can edit that part out. But after seeing the damage that his legacies caused. I keep saying fucking caused. My God. But yeah. So after that shit, he says that we are no longer going to be making weapons, which everyone is they're just all pissed off. And Obadiah even tells him
because it's a weapons manufacturer. Manufacturer, and people who work there because they make weapons.
Yeah, and then they shoehorn in his Obadiah's supervillain name. We're ironmongers. They couldn't even
Well, he wasn't that dramatic about it.
Yeah, well, of course he wasn't. But they do that throwaway line where they pretty much are we're ironmongers, which is kind of the weird thing that bugs me about Marvel, is that for some reason they will not, for a long time they would not let the villains go by their supervillain names. They have to be throwaway names, they did that in Incredible Hulk. They don't even do that in Iron Man 2. I think the only, it wasn't until Captain America and Thor where they just let the villains go by their names. Even then it's because with Thor, that's their actual name. You can't call Loki something else. And with Captain America, Red Skull is a code name, which, a lot of people during that time had code names. So, it was believable. But, we have Tony, and he tells everyone that they're not going to be making weapons. Everyone's all uproar. Obadiah's pissed. This is also the first time where we see that Tony shows Obadiah the arc reactor. And as you point out, it was very surprising that despite the fact that Tony and Obadiah have known each other for so long, he did not tell him about it. The only people that apparently knew about it.
We were talking about this earlier.
Yeah, the only people that didn't know about this was Rhodey and Pepper, and maybe Happy, but who really knows? And yeah, it's a very interesting scene right there, and it does kind of, makes you wonder like why Tony wouldn't tell Obadiah, which could be easily seen as obvious foreshadowing that he's actually the bad guy. Ooh. If having a name that clearly sounds evil, didn't help. Didn't help. But yeah, so as time goes on, Tony eventually starts developing the Iron Man armor. He starts updating it, doing test runs, which are really cool scenes. Kind of the classic. Moments of a superhero, which is kind of a dying art, where they just have the superhero just doing test runs and stuff. Like I think the last movie that's done that right now, or at least it's going to do that, is Shazam, where Billy and Freddy are doing that whole they're testing how much power Billy has. But unfortunately, we don't see that much in superhero films nowadays. But he tests the armor out. He sees that he does need some work, that the Mark II has some problems when it comes to flight. It can't really go too far out of the atmosphere. It freezes up. It starts to freeze up eventually, and as it goes on, he'll update the armor. He'll add some gold, which is actually a reference to the comics, where Tony Stark painted the Iron Man armor gold because he thought that people thought Iron Man was too threatening. So they actually have it where for a brief moment he at first just put gold in there, but then he sees his car and he's like, let's add some hot shot red, and then he gets an armor that looks very similar to the current armor at the time, the Extremis armor, which I'll talk about that with Iron Man 3.
Well, it's more like the classic armor. The classic armor being mostly red with a layer of gold underneath.
Yeah, well, I say Extremis because the face mask fits more with that design, and though the center is a circle and not the arc reactor center is not a triangle, but instead it's a circle, it does fit more with that look, where it's very more. It fits more with the Extremis design of it, which makes sense because it'd be hard to pass that design up to cinema and stuff.
And I do love how, similar to Batman and other heroes, Iron Man's origin is much more practical, it's much more grounded.
Yeah.
It's no big accident or anything like that gives him his powers.
He does have to get updated every few years, because the only problem with Iron Man's origin is that the time period. Unfortunately, his origin can be easily outdated, where back it was Vietnam, then it was changed, and then it had to get changed more and more for the time and stuff, until finally
that was fun.
Yeah, until finally they went with the Iraq War, because they just had to start changing stuff. And same thing goes for Punisher, though Punisher, it's a little bit more iffy because sometimes they just have it be in Vietnam and have it be older, but that's a whole other story for a whole other video.
Also, I think it's during these building the Iron Man armor stuff where Tony, he tries to reach out to Rhodey, but Rhodey thinks he's too deranged, too unstable to be trusted with anything. So Tony, you can see Tony's very disappointed. He's very sad that he can't include his best friend in what he's planning, and more or less the same with Pepper.
Yeah. Which led to
then there's Happy Hogan, who, let's face it, in this movie, Happy Hogan was just there just to be the director.
Just Jon Favreau's little moment right there. He wasn't really meant to be anything.
The director himself plays Happy Hogan. He has his... Yeah. And most of the time he wears glasses so that you don't see his eyes. You don't see his face clearly.
Though, which is kind of funny because this is actually the second time Jon Favreau has played the friend of a superhero. The first time he actually played the friend of a superhero was actually in Daredevil, where he played Foggy Nelson.
That's right.
So it's actually kind of funny that, he kind of, I guess he loves playing the the friends of superheroes and stuff. Though I do think I buy him more as Happy Hogan.
I think it's also during this training montages and stuff that the Ten Rings find the remains of the original Iron Man armor. Raza is still alive. Raza just has a big scar on a portion of his top of his head, and he has that look of, "We'll meet again, Iron Man," or "I'll catch you, Iron Man." You think he's the main villain of this whole big thing,
Yeah.
but nope. And Bizarro Critic will tell you a bit more about a good old Raza later.
Yep.
So eventually, Tony finally. Oh, but I forgot briefly. The board that Stark works with, that Tony works with, like a board of directors of various companies, I think, like they're forcing him, and what he learns later that Stain himself was part of this. They are all forcing Tony out of the business, branding him as a victim of PTSD, and that they want to continue manufacturing weapons and such, despite Tony's warnings that terrorists have hold of these weapons and so forth. So then, eventually, after weeks of being a recluse and secretly creating the armors and stuff, he goes out to this big concert hall event at a Disney place of all places, I think. Like the Disney Concert Hall or something. And again, this was like I said in the introduction video, this was like many months before Disney even bought Marvel Studios.
It's like they knew. It's like they knew deep down inside that it was going to happen.
So he goes to the concert hall, has a little flirty dance with Pepper and so forth, gets bothered by a special guy named Agent Phil Coulson.
Yep.
Who appeared earlier and said he was part of the Strategic Homeland Intervention Enforcement and Logistics Division. Wow, that's a mouthful. Yeah, we're working on that. That's a long name. Yeah, I get that a lot. Or something. Which is ironic because as we find out later in the MCU, they've been called S.H.I.E.L.D. for decades.
Yeah, this does really show that this was very during the proto stage of the MCU. Like, they were still working out the kinks on certain things.
It's a fun little joke, but unfortunately
it kind of gets ruined because now the further you learn about it, it's kind of weird that he even went with the full name and he didn't just call it S.H.I.E.L.D., especially since, again, yeah, S.H.I.E.L.D. ends up...
What was the point of the joke if they've been called S.H.I.E.L.D. for decades?
Yeah, like,
But anyway, that's a nitpick. So, finally, when Tony gets a drink for Pepper, he's confronted by Christine Everhart, who's not just mad about their one-night stand or whatever, but reveals photos to him about Stark weapons being used to terrorize Gulmira, to conquer Gulmira, and Tony's absolutely infuriated, and Stain forces him not to get involved, telling him he's the one who filed the injunction against him that keeps him out of Stark business, and Tony decides it's finally time for his persona to intervene. He hasn't named it or anything yet. He's just named the armors, the Mark armors, and so he dons the Mark III armor, and goes out all the way to Gulmira, and he destroys the terrorists, the Ten Rings' various weapons, vehicles, convoys, and saves the villagers, and he leaves the lieutenant guy to be most likely tortured and killed by the villagers, and let's face it, he deserved it because that guy was a fucking monster.
Yep.
And Raza witnesses firsthand the power of this great weapon, and then Tony is hunted down by American Raptors, F-22 Raptors, who were in the area patrolling, and the military got wind of this. I think there's a military branch back in Malibu who's in contact with the forces over in Afghanistan.
Yep.
Who are getting calls from other people demanding to know if the Americans doing what Iron Man is doing right now, and then Rhodey gets involved and has no idea what's going on, and thinks that Tony is involved somehow, saying, "Do you have stuff in my war zone?" It's kind of weird, but it's also fitting. And as Tony tries to fight off the F-22s, Tony pretty much has to finally admit to Rhodey okay, look, that what they're fighting is me. I'm in a suit, and I just want you to know that. So Rhodey's on the phone like, oh, what the fuck do I do now?
Yeah.
Like, I see the bogey. It looks like a man.
Yep.
And then a pilot accidentally gets thrown. A plane accidentally gets destroyed, and a pilot gets thrown out, and his parachute's not working. So Iron Man has to save him, and so he saves him, and then the roadie, he's shocked by it, but admits the less I know, the better. So what should I tell the press? Training exercise isn't that the usual BS? It's not that simple. An unfortunate training exercise.
Yeah.
Even at the time when I was a kid, I just thought that was fucking hilarious. And I literally, for some reason, I thought he literally said a bicycle exercise. I thought he said something about a bicycle.
What the hell?
I can see that.
Were you tired or something? Like, what made you think that was that's what he said?
I misheard him. I thought he said bicycle, an unfortunate bicycle episode.
Man, like, you're not that older than me, man. Like,
I don't know.
What's up with that? But
and I love how when Rhodey's making this announcement to the press, Obadiah is watching him with that suspicious look on his face, like, I wonder if this has something to do with Tony.
Yep.
and Pepper finally catches him, like, getting undressed. It's like that classic.
Yeah, and it's like, in this phase, and we all know this scene because it was like all over the promos. It's a classic moment where he's like, oh, come on, this is not the worst. Let's face it, this is not the worst thing you've seen me do.
Everyone was laughing in the theater when we saw that.
Yeah, and also the biggest Easter egg of all, you could say, about that movie, where when he's doing that, the Captain America shield shows up, like far in the background.
In that movie?
Really, you did not know about that? Yeah, in that scene where
I'm sure that must have meant something.
Yeah, back in the original scene where Tony is, getting undressed. Yeah, a lot of people talk about how in the background, if you look very closely, you'll see glimpses of a Captain America shield. Which again was kind of at first, when you first look at it, you think, no, that's a nice little Easter egg, but then eventually you find out, oh, it's actually a prelude to what would happen later.
Hold on. Let me check the time. We're okay. Okay, so,
yeah. So,
a nice little Easter egg, I'm sure. I'm trying to remember there's an Easter egg in Iron Man 2 that I wanted to
they bring that shield back. They bring that exact same shield back for that scene.
We'll get to that later. Maybe I'll bring it up again later here. Pepper catches him it's the classic girlfriend that catches boyfriend undressing out of his superhero costume, or best friend, or whoever catches superhero undressing.
Yeah.
And Pepper, I love the line where Pepper says, "Are those bullet holes?" Like, you can imagine the horror, you can imagine the terror she must be feeling, and that's something. That's a nitpick I should bring up. His armor can be penetrated by bullets.
I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be implied that they're armor-piercing rounds. Which,
and they are Stark weapons.
Yeah, so they're probably meant to be able to pierce like tank armor and stuff. So
yeah, and then in the next scene, this is where shit really goes down, where Raza meets with dun 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 dun
Stain. The guy who suspiciously looked evil in the poster and who has a very obvious villain name.
Shut up.
That's like me going around saying, "Hi, my name is Vladimir McEvilich."
When I was a kid, this was a big shock, and it's still a fantastic plot twist to this day, because I still think it was brilliantly built up, especially when seconds later, when Raza points to his face, points to his scar, saying compliments of Tony Stark, and Obi's like, I think this is where he finally gets really aggressive. He's been so fatherly up to this point, but then Stain gets a bit aggressive, going, well, if you killed him when you were supposed to, you'd still have a face. You paid us trinkets to kill a prince. And show me the weapon. He's the one who hired them to kill him in the first place. But apparently they didn't know that it was Tony Stark that was their target in the first place. So they turned their backs on him. Raza shows Obadiah, shows Stain the original armor. You know, Stain is very impressed, like, oh, so this is how he did it. And Raza explains, oh no, this is a first crude effort. Stark has perfected his design, has created a masterpiece of death. And it's revealed here that Stain wants control of Stark Enterprises more than anything. That's like the crowning jewel, the crowning throne of heroism, of being. He basically wants the glory of it all. He wants the wealth. He wants the power of it all. I may be overanalyzing here, but I see it where like Stain hates Tony more than anybody. He sees him as absolutely lazy, absolutely reckless and stuff. And
well, because it's the idea of Tony Stark. Like Stain worked his ass off to Stain worked his ass off to get where he is, and yet Tony it kind of got handed to him, and it didn't help that it felt like Tony because they even say when you first introduced him that. He was a very genius child and stuff. Like he was very much like his father, probably even more. That he was able to I think they say he developed his first computer when he was like 12 or something.
15, I think, or 17.
They pretty much say that he was he was a master engineer and he was he was a prodigy pretty much, which you can kind of say that Obadiah was kind of pissed off because this kid. Was he was first of all he was blessed with great intelligence, but also he kind of just didn't even have to work hard for it either because his dad was the head of the company.
So and then Raza tries to make an offer Raza will give him the original armor and weapons and stuff, while Stain gives him. Or iron soldiers, as he calls it, but then immediately Stain paralyzes Raza with a special tool that I think was officially made illegal. That's what Stain implied.
Yeah.
And then just as Stain leaves Raza for dead. He leaves him for dead because all of Stain's guards have overwhelmed the Ten Rings, the remainder of the Ten Rings terrorists.
At least involving this cell, at least.
And in a single squad fire mass murdering massacre, the entire Ten Rings is, or at least the Ten Rings that we know of, is taken out, wiped out, and Stain becomes the big bad guy for the rest of the movie, and he orders a prototype Ironmonger battle suit to be made, and then right after this, as we get closer and closer to the climax, Tony asks Pepper to help him find some secret files. I think some secret files on his company computer, and Pepper refuses at first, saying, "I'm not going to help you kill yourself." And Tony makes that awesome speech of, "I shouldn't even be alive unless it was for a reason."
Yeah.
I finally know what I have to do, and I know in my heart that it's right. And I think that's one of the strongest things about this movie that is such a fantastic film for me, is that at its core, at its heart, it's a story of redemption. Yep. Redemption for all the countless wasted opportunities that Tony had in his decades of his life that he wasted just on the frivolous stuff.
Yeah, I think we forgot to mention this, but right before he makes that speech, Pepper actually gave him a gift, which was the first arc reactor. Because at one point he actually replaces his arc reactor with a new and improved version, right. And she, instead of just throwing away the previous one, she actually kept it and gave it back to Tony, saying as a gift that would be represented as proof that Tony Stark has a heart. It's a very sweet moment right there for the both of them, and I can't believe you forgot it, and you said that you even watched this movie so fucking much.
I keep forgetting that scene where Tony orders her to remove the first arc reactor and replace it.
Which is so awkward. He could die literally right there.
And he almost did. Oh, it's nothing, I'm just going to cardiac arrest. What?
Yeah.
God damn it. So, and then, but I forgot to mention that before. But it is an important scene, just like everything else, whatever. So Pepper eventually agrees to find the secret files and tells Tony, you're all I have too, just as Tony told her that. And he told her that when she did the thing. I forgot to mention it. But anyway, and while Pepper's looking for secret files, she finds the prototype, the designs for the Ironmonger and so forth, but also a message that was sent to Stain himself, which happened to be the message from the beginning of the movie. Translated, it was supposed to be, you did not tell us that the target you paid us to kill was the great Tony Stark. The price has just gone up. Pepper's horrified, and she's almost caught by Stain, who comes into the office and tries to manipulate her to turn against Tony.
Yeah, and it is a very creepy scene actually, where it's way more creepier, way more creepy and intimidating than when he actually killed Raza and stuff, because it has that moment of he is just he pretty much has this really messed up moment where he at first sounds like he was happy to see Tony around, and he's it was seeing him back from the dead, and how Pepper gets out of there is it was just you're really relieved to see her get out of there, but then when Stain quickly finds out what she was doing, it just reminds you, oh shit. And also, it also shows the blueprints of the Ironmonger suit, because apparently, again, time works really weird in this one. They never actually tell you how long stuff has been going, how long certain things have happened. But yeah, apparently right after him and Raza talked, he started developing the Ironmonger armor, and even tried to start his own arc reactor, which also led to another really funny scene with in this movie, where Obadiah wants one of the scientists to do it, and we get the classic line of, Tony Stark built this in a cave with a box of scraps! And the scientist just says, I'm sorry, but I'm not Tony Stark.
Which we give poor old William. That was right after Pepper is caught and Pepper escapes with Phil Coulson. And Stain has that moment with William where William says the technology doesn't exist, it's impossible to make it small. And then, of course, Stain says, Tony Stark built this in a cave with a box of scraps! Well, I'm sorry. I'm not Tony Stark.
Yeah, I literally just said that. So you just had to repeat what I said. But,
anyway, so then finally we get to, it's up to debate. This is where the climax starts, or this is just before the climax starts, because this is where Stain finally reveals himself as the villain to Tony right after paralyzing him and making that awesome villain speech of, I was afraid I was killing the golden goose when I ordered the hit on you, and your ideas. I love this line where he says, "You really think that just because you have an idea, it belongs to you?" It's kind of fucked up, and it kind of makes sense when you think about it.
Yeah, well, because Obadiah Stane represents the very, the kind of evil businessman type of thing where they don't give a crap if it was your idea. It's we own you type of moment, which unfortunately
he patronizes Tony for Howard's role in the Manhattan Project, where your father gave us the atomic bomb. What kind of world would we be living in today if he was as selfish as you? And he leaves Tony to die after telling him that this power is going to be used in the right hands, and I would have preferred if Pepper had lived. And then I think it's right there where the climax starts with Rhodey rushing over to save Tony, and Pepper, Phil, and a bunch of S.H.I.E.L.D. agents are about to go arrest Stain.
Yeah, and Tony is saved by the mechanical arm that he's been berating throughout the entire movie.
Yep, with the hearts that Pepper left for him, the original arc reactor he made in the cave, which was never designed for flight, which was never designed for the new model. So while Tony saves himself with the new heart, Rhodey comes to help him out, get him back on his feet. Pepper and the agents try to confront Stain, but Stain has donned the Ironmonger suit, and I don't know if it's confirmed if he killed the other agents, with the exception of Phil, with the exception of Coulson, but he tries to kill Pepper too, but Tony comes onto the scene just in time, which results in the amazing battle sequence between Iron Man and Ironmonger, which is ironic because I've told Bizarro Critic this before in recent months. I'm sick and tired of all the traditional generic fights that only take place in like one or two locations. Like they take place over very small sections, small areas of a city or something, when they could have expanded that even further. But here it really works. It really works because I don't know. It just makes sense how it goes down. I could go. If we had the time, I could go.
It feels very personal in this case.
Yeah, it's very personal.
It's like they've known each other for so long, and it really fits. And the fact that Ironmonger is and just because, and also this kind of shows a little bit of like how the two kind of fight and stuff. That they're pretty much fighting like boxers. Where in fact in Iron Man 2, Tony Stark is actually boxing. If we had time, we could dissect this battle sequence, and I could explain why it works so well. But especially, I think the most critical parts about it are where it seems that Iron Man has killed him by tricking him into going high up enough to freeze him. But then when Tony gets back on top of the Stark building, the arc reactor building, Ironmonger just shows up behind, just back and better than ever, yelling, "Nice try!" And then, of course, Tony and Pepper pull off one last trick where they overload the arc reactor and try to blow up the roof. Yep.
And then we have that awesome moment where like Tony and Stain are both unmasked, and Stain is finally seems like he's finally going to kill Tony and take his power, take his glory from him, take his legacy. Like crushing. I love when he crushes the Iron Man helmet, and it looks like, is this the end of Iron Man? And then, of course, Stain has that famous line, which I'm surprised nobody brings up enough. How ironic, Tony! Trying to rid the world of weapons, you gave it its best one ever, and now I'm going to kill you with it.
Yep, which a bigger irony is that he kind of also that he would do the exact same thing in a far worse degree in Age of Ultron, where he built something that, whatever, I'll get into that later, but yeah, he built something that ended up becoming way worse than it.
The irony. And what I love about this moment too is that Tony almost dies. He's the best kind of superhero imaginable, one who's willing to die when it matters most.
Yep, and also very vulnerable as well, and that's kind of the reason why why Stan Lee made this character. One of the reasons he made the character is that he wanted a character who was more vulnerable, who, in the public eye, would be completely invincible. In fact, his title is The Invincible Iron Man. But in reality, he is just a man, and he's a very vulnerable man at that. Like, there's even a whole thing where, back in the early days, he had to wear a piece of the armor almost every day just to live. It was it was very hard on the character. But yeah, and that's
which actually carries on to the sequel.
Yeah, and it carries on to the sequel. Well, actually, even worse than the sequel because, well, we'll get into that later. But it actually caused more harm than good for him in that case.
Right. Back to the climax. Bottom line. Pepper forces herself to do what she was afraid was going to happen, yelling, "You're going to die," but Tony keeps saying, "Push it, push it." The arc reactor overloads and blows a big light in the sky that severely electrocutes Stain and his armor, and Stain is probably already dead. But and then they both fall, both Stain and the Ironmonger blow up in an explosion of the arc reactor, and it looks like Tony's about to die, but his reactor faintly glows, and then we have the ending scene that defines ending scenes in a way where Tony prepares to face the press once again for a false story about how this guy is my bodyguard. He's a bodyguard. That's a little far-fetched. And what do I say about Stain? Oh, we'll just say that Stain died in a plane accident, because small aircraft are accidental prone.
Yeah,
and then of course there's that moment where Pepper's like, "Thanks for all your help. Oh yeah, you'll be hearing from us from the Strategic Homeland. Just call us S.H.I.E.L.D."
Yep.
I remember as a kid my jaw dropped because I didn't expect to see that.
Yeah, I knew exactly what was going on because again, when I heard them say that name, even though that's actually not the acronym for S.H.I.E.L.D., or at least maybe they've changed the acronym because I think they've changed it a few times. But I was like, holy shit, S.H.I.E.L.D. And then we get the famous moment of Tony Stark. He does the cue cards and stuff, and he's about to he's about to tell the press about this about the whole bodyguard and stuff, but
Christine Everhart of all people speaks out saying, "Do you honestly expect us to believe this shit?"
Yeah.
Blah 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 blah.
And Tony Stark just throws away the card and he just says, and the movie just ends with,
"I am Iron Man."
Yeah.
And everyone freaks out. Bum, bum, bum,
yeah,
and you hear some Black Sabbath, and
then
the end credits roll.
Yeah, and then we get the scene that's, in a way, you could say this is a scene that sparked so much hype. Where Tony Stark, he walks into his house, he sees someone in the back, someone in the dark. He just says, "I am Iron Man," and he's and then he just says, "You think you're the only superhero around?" And then he's like, "Who are you?" And he's like, "I'm Nick Fury, director of S.H.I.E.L.D. I want to tell you."
And I just turned off Jarvis.
Oh yeah, he just turned off Jarvis. He's like, "I want to tell you about the Avengers Initiative."
Yeah, apparently people freaked out over this, and I remember
because it was a big deal. No one has ever even attempted, straight up said that we're going to do this movie someday because.
Well, as a kid, especially even at this time, I had no idea who the fuck the Avengers were, because I grew up with Justice League. I knew who the Justice League was, and I loved the Justice League so much. But of course, Avengers came along, and I was blown away almost as much as this movie blown me away. But we had the awesome post-credit scenes, and of course, I am Iron Man. You have an origin movie where the superhero publicly reveals his identity at the very end of the film of all times.
Yep, and
that's how the best superhero film of all time ends. That's the best superhero film of all time for you is Iron Man.
Yep.
Right, I'm gonna say it right now because I want us to prepare to move on to the next couple videos we want to make for today that will release week after week. I meant to say this in the introduction video, but I intend to have this released on the Saturday of every week in spring of 2019 or winter spring of 2019, and as we get closer to the next Infinity War movie, we'll start having 2 vlogs in the same week during the month of April, most likely, but we'll see how that all plays out. So. With the time remaining, I'll give I'll try to be concise with why I love this film so much, including some reiteration, if you will. Like I said before, it's a grandiose story of redemption, of both living life to the fullest, but then realizing you're not living life to the fullest, and going exceeding your limits in a way, becoming the best you can be. And how you make new best friends but lose those best friends at the same time. I guess with all awesome movies, it gets better and better. I will admit, after all these years, the first half hour or so of the film, the first act of the film, could have been done a lot better. But that's just when you're being really nitpicky. As it carries on, and Tony makes the desperate move to shut down the weapons manufacturer, to build his own secret grand weapon to fight the terrorists and so forth, that's when it gets really juicy, gets really intense, really even more intriguing, much more intense than before. And then, of course, as the real big villain is revealed and the red herring villain is put aside, that's another thing. This is the first of a bunch of surprise villains that Disney, or in this case Paramount, throws in there. Or just the MCU in general throws in there, but I think it's done fantastically.
And also it was one of the few superhero films that could do multiple villains and work out. Again, we had Obadiah Stane and Raza, who fuck it, I'm just gonna call him what he really is. He's a fucking Mandarin. He's the Mandarin. I know they call him Raza, but he's the Mandarin.
Yeah, please, Bizarro Critic, please explain. It's time you explain what the deal is with Raza. What the dealio is with Raza.
Okay, so back when the movie was, during Iron Man 3, they established that they've been building up the 10 rings, and the leader, and they revealed the leader is obviously the Mandarin. They didn't really talk about who the Mandarin was until finally, Ben Kingsley showed up, and then it turned out that he's an actor. There is no Mandarin. But then in Hail the King, they did this whole thing where it turns out, oh, there is a Mandarin, but it's like it's not a person, it's a title. Where like multiple people have had this name, and one of the people turned out to be Raza. And at first, when I saw this, I thought, oh, that's a fucking cop out. Like as much as it bugged me. Well, okay, to be honest here, I'm kind of mixed on the Mandarin twist. But as much as the stuff of it bugged me, I feel like, come on, it's even like that's just a big stretch. And then when I watched Iron Man 2 again, not Iron Man 2, Iron Man 1 again, it started to actually make more sense. The more I saw of Raza, it did actually fit with what Mandarin would talk about sometimes. And yeah, like they did change his race again, but to be honest here, they've done that before. Mandarin, when it comes to iterations, like whenever it comes to TV and movies, he always changed something with Mandarin. Like in the '90s TV show, he was green and his real name was Arnold Brock. Like he was a straight up, like I'm pretty sure he was supposed to just be a straight up white guy. Then in the '60s show, I think that was the only time where he was just straight up the Mandarin.
Well, I think with the exception of Spider-Man, all the '60s Marvel cartoons literally just used comic book panels straight out of the comics. Yeah, it was really cheap.
Yeah, it was a very cheap show. And then finally, we had well, not finally. Wait, there was one more. I almost forgot about this one. With Iron Man, the Invincible Iron Man animated film, the Mandarin was a ghost. He was like the ghost of I think he was like an evil spirit who possessed his like descendant and stuff. And apparently, which it was really weird of how they did that with Mandarin. Like I'm not saying it's not a big of a stretch by having him be more magical based, since I think originally he was meant to be magic, but then he changed it to a more scientific based villain. And then for Iron Man No More Adventures, which was created, to promote the movie, despite the fact it had nothing to do with the frickin' movie. Mandarin was, two characters actually, Gene Khan and his adopted father. His adopted father is very much like the Mandarin from the comics, but Gene Khan himself was like this angsty, almost Prince Zuko-esque type of character, except he was more of a supervillain. So they made him an angsty teenager because everyone had to be a fucking angsty teenager.
Okay, we're running out of time here, so next up, with the time remaining, I want Bizarro Critic to explain, because he probably can explain this better than I do, because I only know so much. I want him to explain the big baddie of this movie as he was in the comics originally, because Obadiah Stane, the Ironmonger in the comics, he was much different from this version. Before I let him explain, I'll say right out, they were never friends in the comics. They had been enemies. They had always been enemies for a long time. They're rivals. Yeah. He was even enemies with Howard Stark and so forth. And much like this movie, I think the Ironmonger, when Obadiah Stane finally used the Ironmonger, wasn't there only one big fight that he and Iron Man had in the comics back in the 80s?
I believe so. Like, I wasn't super big into Iron Man until
it was a big story arc, because
it was a big
this is the famous story arc where Iron Man was consumed by alcoholism, passed on the mantle,
which I'm going to be talking about later when we get to Iron Man 2, because Demon in the Bottle played a part in this.
So concisely explain Obadiah Stane in the comics and the Ironmonger.
Okay, Obadiah Stane, his whole thing is that he was never Tony Stark's friend, and he was never he was a businessman. He was his rival, because back then Tony Stark had a lot of business rivals. Besides Obadiah, we also had Justin Hammer, and unfortunately, despite the fact that the character is become well known thanks to this movie, Obadiah himself has never really, besides the story where he debuted as Ironmonger, that was kind of one of his big moments. His legacy has lived on though, because Obadiah, he died, and unlike other characters, they didn't bring him back from the dead. Instead, his son, his son Sebastian has taken over, and he's been the main villain this whole time. So Obadiah is kind of a character who, it's more or less what his legacy led to, and not really of what he did. Though he himself, as a character, would do big things as a villain.
And in the comics, he was the mastermind behind Tony's alcoholism. Like, if I do that and that, he's sure to get he's sure to become a drunk.
Well, like it kind of like it's more like he knew Tony Stark was kind of like, again, it's been a while since
He found out Iron Man was Tony Stark.
Yeah, he found out, and but yeah, with Tony Stark though, it's also more. It was more like he knows Tony Stark is already kind of does drink a lot anyway, so he's like, it'd be easy, like, he thought it'd just be easy for him to like push him, like, just push him further to the point where he would become very codependent.
And then he eventually uses the Ironmonger suit, but because he severely lacks experience compared to Iron Man, he is no match for Tony, even with the Ironmonger's great weapons and stuff, right? And eventually, at one point, he holds someone's baby hostage. And then eventually, when he's defeated by Iron Man and friends, he refuses to... This is the most fucked up, but my favorite part about the original character is that he refuses to face prison and everything, so he incinerates his own head.
Yeah, and that's it.
I read on wiki articles that he does briefly get resurrected, but just to be thrown back because some demon wants to use him in the Ironmonger or something.
And that's kind of about it, though. That's actually the thing that really was... Because yeah, like when I was little, I didn't really get into Iron Man until New Avengers, until that run started going on. Because I knew of the character, but I never really got into him until New Avengers came up, and then I noticed that Tony Stark has some really cool shit. I gotta check more of this stuff out.
Right.
And with Ironmonger, even though Obadiah Stane was one of Tony Stark's business rivals, and he did play a big part in Tony Stark's life during the time. He unfortunately did not have a big career as an actual supervillain. Like, he was mostly, like, I guess you could say, yeah, he was kind of like the Lex Luthor of Tony Stark's thing. I know it's funny you brought that up.
He in another side conversation outside of these videos, he was basically an exclusive villain for a specific time period with his own special big story, and then it ended. Yeah,
and then he died, and then after that, again, like his... And then after that, it was
and apparently,
legacy.
Unlike Lex Luthor, he was traumatized. He suffered permanent hair loss because he witnessed his father's suicide. He witnessed his father's suicide, and that caused some sort of stress.
Yeah.
That caused him to permanently lose his hair and become bald. Unlike Jeff Bridges.
Yeah. And then,
I just love what they do with Jeff Bridges' character. Okay, we're running out of time here. I think we should most likely. Put more stuff into analyzing, nitpicking this movie as a whole in like some extra stuff videos or something, because I could go on about how much I love this movie. The writing is almost everything is done perfectly. Almost everything is done perfectly. It's like the epitome of 4.5 stardom for me. Like the writing is almost perfect. The characterization is almost perfect. I love these characters to death, from Obadiah Stane to Tony to Rhodey and so forth. Oh shit, we didn't talk enough about Terrence Howard.
We'll talk about him in Iron Man 2. We'll give him a shot.
And then like I said, writing characters, the acting was practically perfect. The acting probably is 5-star shit, and the tone, the pacing, everything's done perfectly.
And the fact that
it's practically the perfect origin story, the perfect superhero film.
Yeah, and the fact that this was actually a lesser-known character. Because let's face it,
before
you saw this movie, did you know who the fuck Iron Man was unless you read the comics?
Yeah, Iron Man was not a very popular character, not a very famous character. He was popular enough, and they had already produced Civil War by this point. This was released after Civil War was released.
And honestly, the movie would have been, and I feel like that was actually going to go against the movie, because a lot of people after Civil War hated Iron Man because they were pissed off that, he was kind of responsible for a lot of shit that happened in that story.
So overall, turning it over to you, what is your overall take on this movie? I don't think for me, this is like, I think I mentioned this earlier, this is like a 97%, somewhere around that 97%.
You kind of said it repeatedly a lot, but
okay.
But yeah, for me though, I do enjoy the film. I think it's I think it's really great that they actually gave a character who is not that well received, or at least not that well known outside of comics, his own spotlight, and I kind of liked that it also brought back an actor's career, Robert Downey Jr., who unfortunately he himself actually dealt with drug and alcohol abuse. And it was really cool to see him come back from that issue and end up making a strong career of this. After this, he ended up doing movies like the Sherlock Holmes films, which, whether you like him or not, you can't deny he did a good job at those films. And he also did The Judge, and also played another actor. And actually played an actor along with Tom McGuire in what was it? Tropic Thunder.
I gotta look into that because that Iron Man and Spider-Man together, that must have been something. But go back to the movie.
Yeah, as for the movie itself, I really like it. I always find it interesting of like the stuff that it went through and how different this film could have been. Originally, I heard Tom Cruise was going to be in the film, and his idea of the armor was so freaking stupid. To briefly say it, it was going to have like a clear helmet so they could see his face, and it was going to have nipples on it.
Okay, one more question. Like, okay, over a couple. What do you think is its problems, and how could it have been better?
I guess when it came to the problems, it doesn't really have that many problems and stuff. I think the only issue I really had with it, like the real issue I have, that there are a few nitpicks I have, but it's forgivable, was really just, it did bug me about Tony Stark and Obadiah Stane's relationship. They clearly had something good going on here, and Obadiah as a villain is very well performed, and he's a very good villain. But the problem is, like, there are just some points where I just don't, like, there's some points where I just feel like it would have been better if we spent more time with the two and spent more time with Obadiah. He's mostly in the background a lot, and it doesn't feel as impactful when it turns out he's the real villain the whole time. Though, again, for me, it was fucking obvious. Like, you know, not even if I didn't know the comics, I feel like I would have known. But, yeah, like, Obadiah, though, yeah, I just felt like he could have been a really good villain if we spent more time with him. Unfortunately, this is an issue that happens a lot with the early Marvel films, with maybe one or two exceptions, where we don't get to spend that much time with a certain villain, especially the main villain. That was my main issue, until it kind of explains when I feel like it's kind of one of the reasons why I feel like the alternate ending for Obadiah Stane doesn't work as well. Because, originally the ending was going to be that Obadiah, he would actually survive being electrocuted and try to drag Tony Stark with him when he falls. You know, doing the whole, like, you know, you're coming with me type of thing. Mm-hmm. You know, we've been through so much together. And I don't know, it wouldn't have been as strong and believable if, you know, from now, like, it just didn't work so well for me. Besides that, I really do enjoy the film as a whole.
So you think it's a great film overall?
I think it's a great film, and it was a great start to the Marvel stuff. Yeah, sure, there were continuity errors, but again, it actually kind of fits perfectly with comics. Comics, when they start certain stories, sometimes they'll drop or change things like afterwards. Sorry, it's just a thing I gotta do. Yeah, things will change and stuff. So of course, like, you know, we're gonna have continuity errors. Hell, we're gonna get more of that even now that, you know, things have been a little bit more thought out and even more designed. They'll still have changes. Like, hell, Infinity War. When we get to that, I'm gonna talk about how, even though I really do like that movie, they do have some continuity changes and errors that they don't really talk about that much, particularly Thanos' motive, which they rarely talk about. But yeah,
that's another story.
That's a story for another time.
Finish up.
On a whole, I do really like this movie. It's not my favorite superhero film, but it's definitely a film that I love watching. And if you have not seen the film, first of all, shame on you!
Shame for fucking shame!
Yeah,
the Spearman and Bizarro Critic order you to go watch it now.
Yeah, but also, like, yeah, besides that, go watch the movie.
Go watch it.
Yeah, it's a fun film.
I can only hope that you love it as much as I do.
Yeah, like, it's a fun film. It's a great way to get people into Iron Man stuff. I'm not gonna say it's a great way to get into comics, but it's a great way to start. I
don't know.
Yeah. Well, maybe. Like, sometimes people do get into comics.
All right, so we're just gonna stop right here, right now.
We're
I wonder why.
Yeah.
Mr. Comic Book Man over here. But anyway, we're gonna move on, and we're gonna go to a different location around the house, around the place, and we'll get to Incredible Hulk and Iron Man 2 in the following weeks, or the following videos.
Yeah, because we're literally doing these right after this.
We're gonna get into Incredible Hulk and Iron Man 2 in the next videos. So thank you for your time with us, and we'll see you next week. In your time, that is. So yeah, see you next video. This is Spearman and Bizarro Critic signing out for now. Bye.
Peace out.